you're here tonight to hear from Teri Fick. Teri is the Minnesota State Advocate for Leave No Trace. That's a volunteer position with the Leave No Trace organization. Teri lives in Scandia, and she finished her Master Leave No Trace Educator course in 2010, and she's really passionate about outdoor education. She's a retired toxicologist from 3M with a master's in public health from the University of Minnesota. And she and her team of volunteers conduct awareness events and trainings all across Minnesota on the principles around Leave No Trace. So welcome, Teri.
Thank you for inviting me tonight. I'll tell you what, I think I have to join. You guys sound like you do so much. And gosh, the equipment swap, I got tons of stuff. The equipment locker where you can get stuff, that sounds really great. I'm totally into the native plant and foraging kinds of stuff, so I want to see that presentation. So yeah, I think I'm gonna have to join. And I know you guys are, this is a great topic. I'm really happy to be presenting to the Rovers because you guys are really conservation minded and you're all about preserving the woods and trails and waters and everywhere we go for outdoor activities. So this is a perfect fit, and I hope that some of you, you're probably familiar with Leave No Trace. I'm sure most of you are. Hopefully you'll learn a few new things and or consider reaching out, doing awareness workshops with people in your networks and just spreading the word about Leave No Trace. That's really kind of what this is all about, is what we can do in Leave No Trace is work through volunteers. It's a very small organization out of Boulder, Colorado. But before I talk too much more about the Leave No Trace organization, I want to talk a little bit about Minnesota, because Minnesota is one of the greatest places to live in the whole world. We have so much in our state. You can see on the slide, 1 national wilderness area, 12 national wildlife refuges, 6 national parks, 2 national forests, 75 state parks, and just in the Twin Cities metro area, we have 1 national park, 6 state parks, 1 national wildlife refuge, and 23 state wildlife management areas. When we put this slide together, it was just like, oh my God, really? That's amazing. So this is a map of Minnesota. Another really unique thing about Minnesota is we have 4 biomes. And I took a Minnesota Master Naturalist class last summer. And it was fascinating to me. I learned a lot. I want to take all 4 biomes and be a naturalist in all of those. But I'm learning a lot as I do both Leave No Trace and Master Naturalist stuff. So all the state parks are on here. It sounds like you guys go to a lot of these, and there's just so many resources in Minnesota. So Leave No Trace, the organization, they do have a state advocate in every state. It's a volunteer position, and the role is just to kind of spread the word across the state, do awareness events, do some trainings. We have a pretty small core team of really passionate people, and we're always looking for more people to join us to do the events that we do. That's me right there. And this is our page on the Leave No Trace website. Our specific goals in Minnesota are to grow partnerships across the state with nature outdoor clubs, businesses, agencies, any organization that's interested in preserving the outdoors. We are expanding our training efforts. This is considered a training presentation. We're trying to establish regional volunteer networks. I'm here in the Twin Cities, and most of my core team is here in the Twin Cities, but we get requests from all over the state to come and do a festival or show up, do a booth, and we can't be at all those places with the small team of people that we have. So we're trying to find people in regions where they can do that, and then I can be the resource that can provide you with a booth kit and literature and hang tags and things like that you can go about and do a presentation in the areas and to the organizations that you belong to. And so we're working on that. And like I said, our biggest challenge is just building that volunteer base across the state. People come and people go, and you know, that's how life is, and that's how volunteer life is. So we do a lot of stuff in Minnesota. In fact, the Leave No Trace organization out of Boulder gave us a chapter status because we were so active, and that allows us to have our own budget, raise our own money, and do some things that some of the other state advocates around the country can't necessarily do. But our big event that we do every year is we have a booth at the state fair at the DNR, right by the DNR building, and we do 3 stage shows. And those are really fun. This year, the traveling trainers were able to come, and I'll tell you a little bit more about the traveling trainers in a bit, but they come from the center, the Leave No Trace organization, and they came and helped us staff our booth and meet and greet people at the state fair and do our stage shows and whatnot. And it's really popular at the fair because we always get Smokey Bear and Woodsy Owl. And then, of course, Bigfoot, who is our mascot, is there. And kids love to come and get their pictures taken with these characters. And so that's a lot of fun. We have a lot of Minnesota partners. The Leave No Trace organization works through corporate partnerships and state partnerships, local partnerships, and whatnot. And in Minnesota, we're doing the same thing. So we have some really important partners. They're all listed here. I just want to point out a couple of big ones. Campfire Dragon. The guy that invented Campfire Dragon is on our leadership team, and Campfire Dragon is just a little device that helps you start campfires safely. Another one is the Biffy Bag. Greg Leto is the inventor of the Biffy Bag, and it's a disposable toilet system. So it's great to have people like that on our leadership team. We do a lot of work with Boy Scouts. Boy Scouts have their own Leave No Trace programs, but we do a lot with them, and we have a person from Boy Scouts on our leadership team, and same with Girl Scouts. The Girl Scouts, we worked with them and developed a backpack program for camp, like the camp directors. So there's a backpack that has all kinds of resources and games and things that the camp leaders get to take with their unit and then do those activities as they're camping throughout the day or the week or whatever they're doing. So so that's great. Our newest member partner is the Isaac Walton League, the Minnesota Valley chapter. They have a green crew, which is actually a Boy Scout adventuring crew, and they are very conservation minded, and they want to spread the word of Leave No Trace. And they've been doing, we did a training workshop with them in May, and then they have taken that and spread the word through their, they do a lot of outreach and presentations on lots of different topics, but they always include Leave No Trace in that now. So that's great. And you know, Rovers would be a great partner as well. There is a financial commitment that is with the Leave No Trace organization. And essentially it just shows your commitment to Leave No Trace and gives you some benefits of being able to use the Leave No Trace logos and whatnot. So one thing Fran mentioned to me was that decision making, and how do you decide what you're going to do in different situations. And I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but I wanted to just mention the authority of the resource versus the authority of the agency. And I think you'll be able to get this presentation at the end of this, and there's some live links in here. And so the Leave No Trace webpage on authority of the resource is there. You can just Google it and you'll be able to find it too. But the thing that Leave No Trace really wants to do is focus on the resource, because that's the important thing. We're not about laws and rules and regulations, although we do need to follow those things when we go into the outdoors and the places that we visit. We have to plan ahead and prepare and know what the rules and regulations are in that particular area. Can we have a campfire? Where are the trails? Those kinds of things. But we want to focus on the resource instead of the agency. And the agency is that park ranger or the policeman, or, you know, when something goes bad, the agency comes in and gives you a ticket and a fine and things like that. But we want people to understand why we want them to leave no trace. And the reason is because the resource is important and we need to preserve it for the future. So there's a particular approach that you can use if you come across situations where you want to teach someone a little bit better way maybe to change their behaviors in the outdoors. So again, I think most of you know what Leave No Trace is. And I know you all go on hikes, go camping, picnics, spend lots of time in the outdoors, because getting outside renews our spirit, connects us with nature, allows us to see amazing beauty. And we want to protect that. So Leave No Trace is an international educational nonprofit that's dedicated to protecting the outdoors by teaching and inspiring people to enjoy it responsibly. And they do this through education, cutting edge education and training programs across the country. We want to provide people with techniques and skills so that they can enjoy the outdoors sustainably. We focus on education rather than costly restoration programs because it's the least resource intensive solution to land protection. And it's all of us as individuals need to be able to, you know, go out there and do that. But if we don't understand how to do it and why we're doing it, we're going to continue to have problems. So education is really a key thing in what the Leave No Trace organization is focused on. And the why, we really are focused on the why. The research says that 9 out of 10 people that visit the outdoors aren't informed about Leave No Trace. They might understand the words Leave No Trace, it's kind of intuitive, but they don't necessarily know what that means or what the principles mean. Or even if they know the principles, they may not know how to apply them in different situations. And there's there's billions of people that go out into the outdoors in the US alone every year. And it's people that are causing a lot of damage, and the damage is adding up. I'm sure you've all seen trashed areas and, you know, fire scars in campgrounds and damaged trails, all that type of thing. An example is, in America, we pay about $3 billion to fight fires in parks and forests. We're all familiar with the forest fires that happen because it impacts us even if they're not happening here in our state, although they do happen in our state. I think there was just one recent one in the Boundary Waters. They tend to be smaller here in Minnesota, but there's an awful lot of them. So, and those are mainly caused by humans, by leaving campfires unattended or, you know, tossing a cigarette. So those things are preventable, and education can help with that. Another example is wildlife. Wildlife often get relocated and in some cases euthanized because of conflicts with humans. The National Park Service says human garbage is the origin of most of the unfortunate and unnecessary conflicts with wildlife, because we're, you know, leaving human food. And if we leave human food behind, then we can acclimate animals to coming to those campgrounds. They lose their fear of humans and they develop an attraction to the trails and the campgrounds. And then they can become aggressive and dangerous. So that is not a good thing. This is another example of the problem. So Mount Everest is a very popular climbing destination, and the trash on that mountain is getting out of control. And so we really need to have more education about how we can prevent these things from happening. Impacts. So there's these 6 types of impacts that humans have: vegetation, wildlife, social, cultural, and soil. We'll talk about wildlife first. I talked about that a little bit already. Animals can get habitual, not just animals, bees, wasps, ants, anything. If there's human food around, chipmunks, squirrels, they get habituated to coming there and expecting to find food, and that can ruin the experience for humans, and it can be harmful to the animals as well. So the human wildlife interaction, it can alter their behavior. It can affect their breeding and their upbringing of their young, and even reproduction. Then there's soil impacts. So loss of organic litter, soil compaction, soil erosion. I'm sure you guys, with all the hiking that you do, are familiar with this. And parks spend millions of dollars on trail maintenance every year. So that's a huge impact that we have. Vegetation impacts is another one. Introduction of invasive species, loss of vegetation, loss of wildflowers, and just plant damage. Then there's cultural resource impacts through theft of cultural resources, or damage to historic features and artifacts. There's some pretty amazing and awful stories about what people take out of parks, or what they do with graffiti or knocking over rock formations and things like that. So again, we need more education so that people know how to change their behaviors out there. Campfires, we talked about the impacts of that. Depleting areas of all the dead and down wood, and then just increasing the wildfire risk is bad. Water resources. Man, water is a limited resource, and we need to take better care of it. There's trash in the water, soap, fecal waste. People, we get the question all the time, well, I use biodegradable soap. Isn't that okay? Well, if you wouldn't drink a glass of water with biodegradable soap in it, don't expect the fish would want to do that either. So there's ways to wash your dishes the right way, and you definitely shouldn't do it in the rivers and the oceans and the lakes and the streams. Then there's the social impact. So other visitors, oftentimes we can ruin it for everyone else, right? You come across a particular user group and maybe they're doing something, and then you have a confrontation or something, and that can just diminish your experience. Social media has impacted this too, because let's say there's a really great place to go that used to be kind of a secret, and then everybody's posting about it, and then it becomes more and more popular, and then people start going there, and then it gets more impact. So it's kind of crazy how much impact we humans have on our public lands. So this slide just shows that use. We have a trivia thing that we do, and one of the trivia questions is, where do you think the most people recreate? Of the forest, national parks, state parks. People usually guess national parks because they're so popular and well known. But actually, it's the state and county parks and city parks, because that's where we're going. They're right in our backyards. And so it's great to see so many people spend time outside, but it also means that there's more impact. And the pandemic really increased the use too. And I'm sure you've heard stories about how, or seen for yourselves, how that impacted. There were, the parks weren't staffed, the garbage wasn't being emptied. People didn't know, they didn't know the bathrooms were going to be empty, and when you got to go, and they didn't know the right ways to take care of that. And so again, through education, we can have an impact on people's behaviors. And it's not just the one time that you cut a switchback or toss an apple core and off the trail or whatever, but it's because there are millions of people going out, and that's where the environmental implications just become staggering. So this is a typical park scene. So you can see grassy field, nice parking area over where the cars are, access to the water. And then people start showing up and some impacts start to occur. And then more people show up and more. And the potential for the recreation related impacts just increases significantly. And if people are not leaving no trace and taking out what they brought in and cleaning up after themselves, then it just leaves a big mess behind. So we have to think of leave no trace as a spectrum from few impacts to significant impacts. And, you know, you've been in areas where there are both, and there are people who who behave in ways where they leave very few impacts if they're practicing leave no trace. And then there are people who leave significant impacts. You know, I kayak a lot on the St. Croix River, and some of those little islands that you come across that are there, there's a rope swing place on the St. Croix, and you go to that little spot, and it's, I don't know how many times I've spent hours there just picking up the trash from the party that occurred over the weekend. It's disgusting. I just don't understand how people can do that. Bathing suits and towels and broken bottles and all kinds of things. It's so we're all somewhere on this spectrum, and we want to move on to the lower end of the spectrum. We want to make sure that we're having as few impact as possible. So because anything that you do to minimize your impact is better than doing nothing at all. So let's, I'm sure you guys all do your part. And, you know, if you pick up your trash and take it out, you've left no trace. If you pick up your dog waste, you've left no trace. So keep doing those things and teach other people how to do that as well. Another thing, well, two things I love about Leave No Trace. One is it's not about rules and regulations. It's not about you have to do this, you can't do that. It's not a set of 7 rules. It's a set of 7 principles that can be adapted for whatever it is that you're doing in the outdoors. The other thing I love about Leave No Trace is that it's very science-based and data-driven. So Leave No Trace does its own research, and they have some really powerful and really smart people that are developing the research protocols and whatnot. But they also partner with universities and other organizations that are doing some pretty amazing research. And then they use that information to develop their education programs, their training programs, and their best practices. So the existing Leave No Trace literature aligns with the disciplines of recreation ecology and human dimensions of natural resources. So recreation ecology is a field of study. It examines the impact of visitors to protected areas. And the messaging that Leave No Trace has is because of that, the focus on those recreation related impacts. And I'll show you an example of some signage in a minute. Then human dimensions research is trying to understand and interpret humans' attitudes towards and their perceptions of and interactions with the ecosystem. So they'll do things like, you know, you might ask somebody about, well, what do you do with your dog waste? And they, oh, I pick it up and whatnot. But then what they've done some research. They did a big study in Colorado where they followed those people along the trails and actually observed what they did and how many of them actually did pick it up and pack it out. And it was pretty surprising research. You can go on the Leave No Trace website and look at all the different types of things that they've done. And it's pretty interesting. So that informs them about how then can they change things and make people understand the why better. Because if we understand the why, then we're probably gonna change our behavior if it matters to us. And I think the people that are wanting to go out into nature do want to preserve it. They just may not fully understand how the best way to do that is. So as I said, there are 7 principles. They're not 7 rules. There's 7 principles. Plan ahead and prepare. Travel and camp on durable surfaces. This is one I'm sure that's near and dear to your hearts because, you know, for a lot of visitors, trails are an essential component of the outdoor experience. Favorite trails take us to amazing places, wonderful campsites, really nice swimming holes. And if we can concentrate the traffic on trails instead of trampling vegetation and disturbing habitat off the trail, then we're just preserving things a lot. Trails degrade over time. They require constant upkeep, and visitors that are uninformed, that cut switchbacks and go off trail and create social trails, lead to greater erosion and a lot more impact on plants and animals. That can take 10 to 30 years for an ecosystem to recover from that off trail hiking or camping. So, and it can also disturb the wildlife, and just there's all kinds of impacts that causes. The third principle is dispose of waste properly. This is one of, I'll say, the biggest. It's the most visible. I think when you always notice, at least when I'm hiking, I always notice when there's trash left on the trail. And I always try to bring a bag with me. We have a bag called the fear of packing out bag, FOPO bag. And it's just a bag that you always take with you, and because people hate to take trash out with them, but you don't want, so we're trying to avoid that fear of packing out. And whatever it is, if it's your own human waste or if it's waste that you're picking up along the trail, we want you to pack it out. But it's, you find waste in fire rings. Then there's the waste, like I talked about, with habituating animals to campgrounds and what, because we're leaving behind micro trash and micro food. If we just dump out our dishwater on the ground, there's food particles in there. That's going to attract animals. So there's other ways to do that in a more responsible way. So the waste principle is a huge one, and there's so much education that goes into that, of the different ways to take care of different types of waste, because there's all different kinds of waste. Then leave what you find, minimize campfire impact, respect wildlife, and be considerate of other visitors. I'm going to play this real quick little video here because it'll help you remember the principles. And these kids that do this are really cute.
Number 1, know before you go. Number 2, choose the right path. Number 3, crash your trash. Number 4, leave what you find. Number 5, be careful with fire. Respect wildlife. Number 7, be kind to other visitors.
So those hand signals are a fun way to remember the principles. If they go by fingers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, you make them motions. And it's an easy way for kids to remember, but it's also an easy way for adults to remember. This is one of those signs that I was saying, you know, might reach a person better than don't pick the flowers. So if you say don't pick the flowers, there's no why there. There's no heart in it. There's no real message in it. But this one tells you why you don't want to do that. And it has more of an impact, perhaps, than a basic sign that says, do not pick the flowers. So sometimes different organizations get really creative with their signs. I try to collect these when I see them and take pictures of them, and I have a bit of a collection now. So okay, so, well, back to the 7 principles. That research has shown that these are successful in improving people's knowledge when we train on these 7 principles. It's successful in changing people's behaviors and fostering that outdoor ethic and influencing responsible behavior. Through education, we get healthier, thriving wildlife, fewer negative interactions with humans, considerable litter reduction, less degradation of native plants and animals, and actually stronger human bonds with the outdoors and a greater sense of stewardship. So Leave No Trace is continuing to study and test the principles and their messaging to ensure the best and most effective and relevant programs. All in all, it's really a simple framework for making good decisions in nature, no matter how you choose to spend your time outdoors. So that's the power of Leave No Trace. It began as a kind of a call to preserve the wilderness areas, and it's evolved into a global daily commitment for everyone, for all people, to embrace a Leave No Trace ethic. We want to change the relationship between use and impact, because we want the use of our lands to continue. People want to continue to enjoy it, but we want to reduce the impact. So that's that spectrum again. So the stewardship that's promoted by Leave No Trace extends beyond outdoor enthusiasts and includes anybody who enjoys the outdoors. You guys are in that outdoor enthusiast group where you're out there and you are doing it all the time and you love it. But we want everybody to understand the Leave No Trace principles and have a positive relationship with nature. I think, so I want to talk a little bit about history because I think it's useful to see how Leave No Trace has changed over time and is continuing to change with the times because we are changing. Technology has changed how we approach the outdoors, and just thinking about, we used to always just think about, the backcountry and whatnot, but Leave No Trace extends, even in my mind, and there was a paper written on this, it's called Beyond Leave No Trace, and you can Google that and find that article too, but it extends into, how we dispose of our electronic equipment, how we package our products, our purchasing power, what decisions we make. Do we buy bottled water or do we buy a reusable water bottle? And so all those kinds of choices that we can make put us in a different place on that spectrum from low impact to high impact. So while it did have its roots in the backcountry, it has moved through that. And another really cool thing about Leave No Trace is we have partnered with the 5 major land management agencies, and they're all sending the same message. They all use the Leave No Trace principles. So that just reduces confusion, and more organizations like the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts are adopting those Leave No Trace principles too, and educating on that and pulling it into their organization to push that out through more and more education. So so that's great. You probably know who this guy is, Defender of the Wilderness. He helped draft the Wilderness Act of 1964 and wrote about wilderness manners. And, that was the start, back in the start. But his words are still as meaningful today as they ever were. And we need to remember that. So again, Leave No Trace today is doing, they have major initiatives. And one of the major initiatives is Leave No Trace in every park. Another is Leave No Trace for every kid. So Leave No Trace in every park focuses on public lands, including all the local, state, national parks, forests, and protected areas. And then Leave No Trace for every kid focuses on introducing basic Leave No Trace concepts to kids while they're forming their personal ethical framework. I think that educating our kids is one of the most important things that we can do, because if they, and you probably know, if you have kids, if you have younger kids in your family, whether they're yours or nieces and nephews or whatnot, they probably tell you more about recycling and preserving nature and taking care of the environment than you ever learned in school. And I don't remember ever telling my parents how to recycle or any of that, but they're really becoming passionate about the outdoors, and the youth in the nation are going to make a huge difference. So education, education, education. So how do we reach people? Well, we do things like what I'm doing tonight, and do things like what you guys do when you're out hiking in groups, and with your friends, and you're trying to influence people to take better care of the outdoors. So all these things that are on this slide are ways that the organization, Leave No Trace organization, tries to have an impact and work through education to change behaviors. It's the power of partnership, right? Nobody can do it alone, but we can all do it together. So we got to keep working on that. I want to talk a little bit about corporate and community partners. Two of our biggest corporate partners, one is Subaru. Subaru sponsors the Traveling Trainer Program, which is there's 4 different teams of 2 people that are given a Subaru to drive, and they cross the country doing educational workshops, festivals, and all kinds of stuff. Like the state fair, they came. I put in a request for them to come to Minnesota and help with the state fair, and they came. They do things like that. They do, there's programs called hotspot programs, where someone will put in an application and say, this park needs a lot of help. We did one on Superior Hiking Trail. I think it was in 2020? No, it had to have been 20. It was before the pandemic. But so it was a week-long event, and they did all sorts of community outreach and education to help people in that area understand the precious resource that the Superior Hiking Trail is. So they do hot spots like that all around the country. And then REI is another. Oh, and they also, Subaru also sponsors the State Advocate Program. So we need money for everything that we do, right? Everything has a cost to it. And so by having these big corporate partners, that helps us be able to spread the word. And it's really a big plus for them too. Subaru they have the reputation, I'll say, for being a very energy conscious, environmentally aware company. I just bought a new Subaru, and because I'm a member of Leave No Trace, I got about a $3,000 discount on the price of that car just because I was a member of Leave No Trace. So they have a program for that, that you just apply for if you're a member of Leave No Trace. So if anybody's looking for a new car and you want to buy a Subaru, definitely check into that. REI is another big corporate sponsor. They do a lot of outreach and training, and obviously they're a big company, and they have a lot of financial resources that they can provide. But our biggest resource is our members and our volunteers across the country. So that's people like you guys, and spreading the word that way. There's over, 10,000 members, and probably 40,000 volunteers that make up the base of the on the ground advocacy for Leave No Trace. It's not the the 7 people that are in Boulder, Colorado. It's all of the volunteers all around the country, and they're providing education, outreach in their own communities, making financial contributions, and just rallying the ground troops, bringing more people in, spreading the message. So thank you for what you do, and keep on doing it. We also have the federal, state, and local partners. As I said, we have the 4 major land management companies that are all communicating the same message. And that's a huge plus. They each of these agencies have staff that are required to be trained in Leave No Trace, and then they train other agency personnel, and they train the general public. So we have formal partnerships with all of the state parks across the country, and many of the local, county, and municipal agencies partner with Leave No Trace as well, because they know it's important. So I'll talk just a little bit about training and education. So we have kind of a 3-tiered system. Awareness workshops, which is really what this is tonight. It can be anything from 30 minutes to a full day. It's kind of an introduction to Leave No Trace, to raise awareness and hopefully get people interested in maybe taking a trainer course or a master educator course, and getting a little bit more education. The trainer course is a 2-day field course. And I don't, Fran, do you remember how many rovers took the trainer course when Doug and I came and did that? There were like maybe 6. You're muted, but
6 or 7, something
yeah,
like that.
6 or 7. So we did that a few years ago. Again, that was before the pandemic, but one of our leadership team members, Doug Eikens, we did that. It's a 2-day field course, and that was a lot of fun. We're glad that you guys did that. And so that kind of started the relationship that we have with the rovers, and we've kind of continued it since then. So I have to thank Fran a lot for that. She's been a big part of that. Then we have our Master Educator course. This is a more intensive 5-day field course. This gives you the ability to teach trainer courses. We do, in Minnesota, we do one of these every year. We try to do one every year, and we do it at, where do we do it, Fran? Up in,
Yeah, I'm having that same thing.
the Environmental Learning Center, Wolfridge Environmental Learning Center. And this year we didn't do it because we didn't have enough people register for it before the deadline. And so we work with Knowles on that. Knowles is one of the providers for our Master Educator course. And Knowles is the National Outdoor Leadership School. They have excellent programs, excellent instructors, and just fantastic trainings. There's trainings all across the country. The Minnesota course is a front country course, so it's a little bit less expensive. Most of the Master Educator courses are backcountry courses where you're, carrying all your gear on your back and 5 days and really getting into nature. So it's pretty fun. So those are the different types of formal education, I'll say, that we have. We also have a ton of online learning. And at the end, I'm going to give you kind of a list of resources too. But so there's an online Leave No Trace awareness course that you can take. There's refresher courses for master educators. There's a program called Peak, which is for teenage, kind of the teenage age level. Lots of games and activities that kids can do to learn about the principles of Leave No Trace. There's a Bigfoot's Playbook that is more geared for younger kids, but again, it's a lot of games and activities that you can do. And these are great things to do with kids even if you're not in an outdoor program, but for, any group activities like a church program or, well, Boy Scouts do a lot of it, Girl Scouts do a lot of it, but any organization, fun stuff to do for the kids in a learning environment. That academic arts school that was on our partnership list, it's sort of an environmentally based school, and all of their curriculum has Leave No Trace built right into it. So that's pretty cool. And they've used a lot of the resources. There's just tons of stuff on the website that you can find. A lot of printable things, just quick, easy things that you can do with an audience to help them better understand Leave No Trace. So how do you get involved? Well, practice Leave No Trace when you're in the outdoors. Go to the Leave No Trace website. We do have a Facebook page. Become a member or partner. The big thing is tell others and pass it on, and I know you guys do that. Take a course, take one of our, take a trainer course, take a master educator course. All the online stuff that you can do. If you ever have an organization or an activity or something that you need resources for, you can contact me and I can help you figure out if I can't be there myself or one of our leadership team members. At least I can give you resources where you could do that kind of an event on your own. So I'm there as a resource to everybody. So again, these are just some things that you can do. This is more information. There's a YouTube site that has amazing videos on all of the principles. They're really fun. Most of them were done by the traveling trainers as they've gone out across the country. There's one of Bigfoot in the Boundary Waters. You should definitely look that up. It's pretty fun. There's a whole bunch of Bigfoot doing different things, Leave No Trace wise, and they're great little vignettes that you can use as educational material in your organizations too, just for something fun as a icebreaker at the beginning of your meeting or something like that. So thank you for protecting the outdoors with your involvement in Leave No Trace. And it's because of you, each of you individually, that our natural areas can continue to be enjoyed for years to come. So go out, enjoy your world, leave no trace, and go places. So if there's any questions or anything, I'm happy to answer that.
Thanks, Terry. That was great. Say, I wanted to ask you, I was looking at the website on my phone. I couldn't find any, but it dawned on me after an incident this last week that had I been more prepared in the see something, say something category, I would have been better equipped. Like I saw a guy carving like some initials or something into a birch tree. Mm-hmm. And I walked by him. I'm like, oh, I should be saying something. I should be saying something. But I didn't want to be confrontational, but I did want to stop him. And then it was over. And I thought, I wished I was prepared.
Yeah.
There isn't anything like that on the website that I saw, but like prepared answers or something.
Well, so in the under the category of authority of the resource, when we do trainings on that, we create scenarios, and then we have you role play. What could you do in that situation? The thing is that you have to approach that carefully, because you kind of have to take a look at who that person is, and because you never know how people are going to respond. They might respond very aggressively, and they've got a knife in their hand if they're carving the tree. So there have been some bad endings to people approaching others about, especially when it involves like noise in campgrounds and being and that whole social piece. So you can always resort to informing the rangers and letting them know, and they can handle it but they're usually not right there at the time when that's happening. And so again, the trick is, and every situation is different, and it's hard to come up with, well, what would I say in this situation? And maybe you don't have enough time to think it through. But to go back to the resource and the reason why you wouldn't want to do that. And I don't know, were you aware that tree bark, I don't know, doesn't regenerate itself, and yet you're harming that tree? And I don't know exactly how you'd approach that one, but it'd be a good one to role play and
The
see
good
what
news
other
is he
people
left
come up
his
with.
initials behind.
Yeah. Yeah, that's again why education is so important, because again, that person probably, in their head wasn't going out and saying, oh, I'm going to go destroy a tree, or I'm going to go, they just don't think about what a bad idea that is.
Right.
They're not bad people generally. They're just making bad decisions. So if we can help them make better decisions through education, then we'll be ahead of ourselves. But that's a great scenario. I think I'll have to put that in my repertoire. Anyone else with questions? There's all kinds of programs. You can become a citizen science if you go onto the Leave No Trace website and find out what's going on in, they have citizen science projects where, again, limited financial resources, and the agency, the organization itself has limited people resources too. So how do you solve that problem? Well, you ask citizens to do all the work for you, to do the research for you. So when they have a research program that they're a project that they're looking into, they will ask people around the country to help and do that piece of a research in their area and then report. So citizen science is a pretty cool piece of what Leave No Trace does. Another thing, I don't think I said this, but another initiative that they have is to partner with tourism agencies across the country, because obviously, people, when they want to go on vacation, plan their vacation, they're going to look in maybe, travel websites and travel magazines and things like that. And if all of them are saying, yeah, come to our park, or yeah, come, to our river, and they mention Leave No Trace, and they talk about, the 7 principles, and like, to get into the boundary waters now, you have to take, you have to do a training that involves Leave No Trace. And wouldn't it be great if, before you could go on any hike, you had to sign a pledge that said, it's like the Bigfoot promise, right? Make a pledge that you're going to leave no trace wherever you go. Make it fun, make it enjoyable. And, people will do it. Like, people have to do it if they want to go on the boundary waters, so they do it. And hopefully it makes a little bit of an impact on them.
So
So
Terry.
I'll speak up again. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead,
Oh, I
Catherine.
was just going to add, I'm going with Rhodes Scholar next year to the boundary waters. So they have to be part of this. It'll be interesting. I've signed up for it, but I've never seen anything on their advertisement for this particular trip that to Leave No Trace. I should call them and ask them about that.
Yeah, well, to get a permit to go into the boundary waters, whoever is getting that permit has to do the training. So I don't know if every person in the group, I don't think every person in the group necessarily has to, but whoever the group leader is does have to.
Okay.
So, and during the pandemic, the boundary waters got, that was massive impact. It was horrible. So they had to actually change their reservation systems, and I think they even are changing the number of sites that are available for people to go into and the number of people that can go in. They made changes that are primarily because of the pandemic and what they saw. But it's also because of limited resources, both financial and people.
Thank you.
So I have a challenge for everyone that's here. I know that for the last several years, any campsite I've ever gone to, no matter how remote, and I probably haven't been any place more remote than the Boundary Waters, I've always been able to find either a bread bag clip or a bread bag twisty. Found one in, at least one in every single site. So I always challenge my co-campers to do that too, and we can always find them. So the other part of that challenge is, though, be damn sure and pick it up once you found it and pack it out with you.
Yep. Those are one of my pet peeves. And then you find hair ties everywhere. And what are the other really common? Those bag ties, though, those are, and it's a lot of it is, like I said, that micro trash. It's really hard to see. So it's like, have you heard of Burning Man? Burning
Yeah.
Man is a big festival, and they have at the end of Burning Man, they have this huge effort where they go through and they just do a massive cleanup, and they can't leave that grounds until it's where they want it to be. I can't remember what they call the group that does that, but it's got a funny name. So it's great to have festivals and do things like, like that. It's just, you gotta make sure that it gets taken care of afterwards. And, most of those festivals are held at places like, what's the one in Detroit Lakes? We Fest. Those grounds get trampled every year. There's thousands of people that are there, and there's a ton of damage to the vegetation and whatnot. But it's a designated space, and they keep it at the same place every year. So,
Well, I, for one, appreciate your efforts. Thank you.
well, thank you guys. Like I said, go out and spread the word. And seriously, contact me if you need hang tags or need, resources. Just let me know.
Teri, thank you so much for this presentation. It was a great reminder.
Good, I'm glad.
Yeah.
Happy to do it.